Hello everyone, my channel is about home and garden. I do mostly gardening videos, but this week I'm changing it up and I'm doing a DIY banister project. I will be taking you through the process step by step, so stay tuned. First and foremost, one of the most important steps you should take in order to do a great job on your stair rails is prep work. First, we wipe down the rails with mineral spirits to remove any oils and dirt from the banister. Next, we tape the spindles to protect them from overpaint. And last, we lightly sanded the rails and spindles with fine grit sandpaper. Step 2, take your time applying the gel paint. It's tedious work. We used an 1.5" angle brush to apply the stain. We focused on one banister a day, applying the stain and wiping it off. Unfortunately, after applying 2 coats, I didn't like the look, so I decided to paint another 2 coats without wiping it off. 4 coats later, I loved it. So here we are removing the tape, and we also are going to be sanding down any stain that we got on the spindles. It's easier to sand it down than having to keep painting over top of it. I would show my husband, but he has a messy head, so he doesn't want to be in the video. See how easily it comes off? Having to paint over that would take several coats, so it just comes off a lot easier. It just takes a little extra time, but I want to do a great job. Well, I guess we didn't do a very good job protecting our spindles on this one. I am going to be using this tacky cloth to wipe down the spindles and the rails so that I can get as much dust off of it as possible so that the finish is nice and smooth with no bumps. What do you think about that, Pops?
Fantastic.
Sometimes you have to blow the dust away. We purchased these little containers at Home Depot, and I love it because it has a magnet in there to hold your brush so your brush doesn't fall down and get all painty. This is what the paint looks like with the first coat. The coverage isn't really great. We were trying to take our time and go slow so that we don't make too many mistakes with overpainting. But with the oak, you're always going to see the grain regardless of how well you paint it. We're putting on the 4th and final coat of the water-based top coat. And prior to that, we went through and just ran our hands across the rail to see if there were any bumps. And if there were, we lightly sanded it with steel wool. And we're just about done with it now. Here are the tools that we use to paint our stair rails and our spindles. We painted 3 coats of the Durapoxy. We did very light coats because we didn't want drips. Didn't want to have to go back and sand. Then we did like 4 or 5 coats of the Java, the General Finishes Java. Now, we were wiping it off at first, and it just wasn't, the wood just wasn't looking good, so we ended up just not wiping it off like the last 2 coats, and we loved how it turned out. Then we used the General Finishes High Performance Satin Top Coat, and we did 4 coats of that, and we rarely had to use the sandpaper to get any of the, not sandpaper, steel wool to get any bumps off, so it was very rarely used, and I would recommend if you're going to use that to do it lightly. The tack cloth is really great to use and to have around after you use the sandpaper or the steel wool, just because you know you end up having little bumps on the rails, and you don't want that. Buy lots of wiping cloths. These are great to have because, you know, we just use them and throw them away. I used gloves because the gloves saved my hands from being stained. And we used several paint brushes. The foam brushes we used, I think, basically on the rails with the top coat. And then my husband said he learned that after he did this with the sponge paintbrushes, then he went back over lightly with the regular paintbrushes to smooth it out. And of course, you know, tape. And this little guy came in handy because we didn't have to carry around a big paint can. So that came in really handy, and we used the liners so that we could just throw it away after. But this is pretty much what we used, and this is the end result. We're pretty happy with it. By the way, my husband wanted me to tell you that he loves the Gorilla ladder and that he recommends it because it can go, you can adjust it to go on the stairs, and it goes pretty high. I mean, we have a very tall ceiling, and it was perfect for this. As you can see, we're finished with the banister, and I think it turned out beautiful. I have to give my husband credit because he did most of the work. Thank you, Steve. Now, my house is 22 years old. It was time to update that ugly golden oak banister. By painting it, I've saved money, gave it a fresh new look, created desirability and interest in my home. It took us about 2 weeks to complete the project, 2 to 4 hours a day, and some days we didn't work on it at all. We started out knowing that it was going to be time-consuming, tedious work, so we decided we were going to take it slow by working on 1 spindle at a time. You're probably wondering about the cost. The ladder cost $217. Other materials were $298, with a total of $515, and that's not counting any of the other materials that we had on hand. I have a list of materials below in the description, just in case you want to paint your golden oak banister. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great weekend.